Welcome to the PHLY Phillies podcast. A little bit of a unexpected PHLY Phillies podcast, if you will. Bear with me with the audio issues there for a second. I apologize. Having some technical difficulties. Here we go. There we are. Welcome into an unexpected emergency breaking news podcast from the PHLY Phillies studios, or in this case, my house. As we are going to get you a little bit of an update on the newest member of the Phillies, Otto Kemp, who will make his Major League debut presumably today, but sometime this weekend. We'll do it all coming up right here on this emergency pod. It is, of course, brought to us by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Hello to everybody in the chat. Steve Garrison, I'm actually not funny. Corey, K-Red, what's up to you all? Thank you all so much for joining us. If you would not mind, just hit that like and the like button on your way out or on your way in as we get you a little bit of an update on the newest member of the Philadelphia Phillies. And, of course, that is Otto Kemp. This is exciting, unexpected, but exciting. And I think that the alternate news, of course, puts a little bit of a damper on this. And the person that was the reason that Otto Kemp is on the Phillies roster is because Bryce Harper is now going to hit the 10-day IL with right wrist inflammation. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But Otto Kemp now is a member of the Phillies. He was the 24th ranked prospect in the Phillies system. And this is kind of a meteoric rise for a prospect. Went from a guy who really was I don't want to call him an afterthought, but was kind of just a depth player, a good player, but a depth player. Went undrafted out of school. Likely would have been selected in later rounds, in later rounds if it wasn't, a condensed draft like it is now. Back when the league had 35, 40 rounds, would have assuredly been drafted. But now that it's down to 10 rounds, was an undrafted player, signed as a free agent with the Phillies, and has made his way up the ranks, it took a little bit of extra time to do so. He's 25 years old, but shot up through the major league ranks the back end of last year and really this year. Last year played with 4 different levels, played some time in Clearwater, spent time in Jersey Shore, spent time with Reading, and then, of course, spent part of the season in AAA Lehigh Valley, which is where he spent the first 58 games of the 2025 season. And a lot of people have been calling for this for a while. Not Bryce Harper's injury withstanding, I think a lot of people have been calling for Otto Kemp for quite some time now because the numbers are gaudy in AAA. I mean, I understand that Lehigh Valley is not the largest field in the world. Power numbers can be a little bit inflated when you play in Lehigh Valley, just like they are when you play in Reading. But the numbers are undeniable. I mean, so far this year through 58 games, a 313 average, his slash lines 313, 416, and a near 600 slug lead to a 1.01 OPS. All of his numbers, or most of his numbers, are within the top 5 or 10 across the International League. Was the International League Player of the Month in April, got off to a torrid start in April and into May, has cooled down a little bit through the first couple of days of June, but his numbers are still so good. I think this almost became unavoidable. I think Otto Kemp has kind of forced the Phillies' hands a little bit in this promotion because he wasn't on the 40-man roster. He, a top 25 prospect, yes, but like not a top 10 prospect for this season. But his numbers have been so good, it's become undeniable that Otto Kemp deserved an opportunity to become a major league player should an injury arise or should like the situation that's happened kind of in left field and in center field, if a player or multiple players were not to play particularly well, would Otto Kemp be the first guy up? We talked a couple of weeks ago about who would be the first Philly to make their debut because the Phillies were the last team in Major League Baseball to have a player make his Major League debut this season. And we contemplated two players. And the player that we came to the conclusion on was McAble, who ended up being the decision. He was the first player to make his major league debut in 2025. But Otto Kemp was the other thought. He was the kind of the consensus number two. And the reason that we shied away from Kemp a little bit and went to Abel instead was because there was seemingly, I shouldn't call it a logjam, because positionally speaking, he can be very flexible and he can play multiple different positions. But it felt like the Phillies were content at the time with their left field position. Obviously, with third base, Alec Boehm's been very, very good over the last month or so. Left field has been underwhelming. Center field has been underwhelming, but it felt like they were going to give these guys every opportunity to grab those positions by the reins a little bit. Max Kepler's making $10 million. They are invested in Brandon Marsh for whatever that's worth. They seem to be invested in Johan Rojas for whatever that's worth. And then, as I said, Alec Boehm, after a really bad April, had a much better May and is continuing to hit well in the month of June. So there felt like there was a little bit of a positional logjam, if you will. And I think if they were going to bring Otto Kemp up, they were going to try to give him looks. They weren't going to do a Weston Wilson role with him. They weren't going to do even an Edmundo Sosa role with him, where Sosa plays more than a bench player, but less than a platoon player. And I think they were trying to find the right balance of continuing to allow this guy to get playing time. But he's not a 20 or 21-year-old prospect. He is 25. So I don't think it was going to hinder his growth and development to give him a shot on the major league level and to see what he can do. Because, as I said, the numbers are off the charts. And on top of all of this, on top of the slash line, he has 14 home runs, 34 total extra base hits. He only has 70. I shouldn't say only has 70 hits. He already has 70 hits, but 34 of his 70 hits have gone for extra base hits. 19 doubles, 1 triple, 14 home runs. He's driven in 55. He's also walked 25 times, so it adds to the fact that he's been on base almost 95 times through 250 plate appearances. And a little bit of sneaky speed involved in there. 11 stolen bases, just 2 times he's been caught stealing this year. So in 58 games, he's been really, really productive for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. And on top of the numbers, probably much like myself, if you're watching Otto Kemp, unless you live in the Lehigh Valley area and you watch or you cover the team, and shout out to those that cover the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. We talked to Jake Starr from the Reading Fighting Phils yesterday. Shout out to those that cover the minor league teams, because it is a difficult grind, no doubt. But if you're not somebody who is invested in the minor league system on an everyday basis, the likelihood is you've seen highlights, you've seen clips, you've seen, in-game breakdowns and things like that. And when you watch Otto Kemp's, all of those, the clips and the highlights and the breakdowns, the thing that jumps out to me about Otto Kemp is the way that the ball has exploded off of his bat this season. And so when I sit there and I go, that sounds different. Jake Starr yesterday talked about the ball coming off of Aiden Miller's bat and sounding different than some of the other players. Same can be said for Otto Kemp. And then when you look at the metrics back that up, because he's been hitting the ball really hard all season long. He's in the 82nd percentile in AAA in hard hit percentage. He's almost at 50% hard hit percentage. And he's also in the 82nd percentile in average exit velocity. He's hitting the ball on average at 91.2 miles an hour. So when the ball is coming off of Otto Kemp's bat at the AAA level, it's exploding off of his bat. And I think, again, then you pair that with the numbers, with the positional versatility that he brings. So this year so far, he played 35 games at third, 12 at first, 11 at second, and 7 in left field. So he has the positional flexibility to play a multitude of different positions. I would anticipate with Bryce Harper hitting the IL, he's going to get some looks at third with Alec Boehm at first. He'll get some looks in left field when a lefty is pitching, and maybe try to usurp Weston Wilson, who's not been particularly good this year, to kind of get some of those minutes. So I think it'll be a combination of him playing some third, him playing some left, get a couple of pinch hit appearances. If a righty starts, they'll probably start Kepler and then maybe give Kemp the at-bat off the bench late in the game against the lefty if a lefty comes into the game. Maybe you see him get a spot start at first. The thing with Kepler is positional flexibility, and that's the good about Kemp, is the positional flexibility, and that's the good. Now, AC Philip brings up a point about the negative. And I think if we're being objective and fair, we have to talk about why was this guy still in AAA if he was hitting the way that he does. It's not all sunshine and rainbows for Otto Kemp. The one thing that he does not do particularly well is he swings and misses quite a bit. His whiff rate is nearly 35%. He also has a chase rate of almost 30%. And so when you're balancing the two, it's like, do you balance the good, which seems to be overwhelming this season, and the bad, which is those two things? And I think you end up coming out with there is more overarching good than there is bad. I think when he makes contact versus when he doesn't make contact, yes, it's very real. Again, 35% whiff rate, the 34, I think it's 34.8 or 34.9% whiff rate. And again, a rough chase rate, almost 30%. Those things are real. But the explosion of the ball off the bat, his real numbers. And if you watch the PHLY Phillies show, I talk about expected numbers versus real numbers. And sometimes you can you can do the eye test and say, that's real. And sometimes the expected numbers tell more of a story, sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a bad way. So understanding that his expected numbers are less than what his actual numbers are, that is a conversation piece. I think in Kemp's case specifically, the way that the ball explodes off of his bat, the way that he barrels when he does barrel, those expected numbers don't bother me as much, even though they are lesser than what his real numbers are. So with all of that to be said, I think he's forced the Phillies' hand a little bit. He has played to a point that this becomes the right move. This becomes a move that the Phillies had to make. Twofold. One, because they needed somebody to come up because of Bryce Harper hitting the IL. And two, because it's not like when you think about one of the positions that he could play is left field. Been pretty underwhelming so far. Max Kepler signs for $10 million. He's been underwhelming. He's not going to play center field. Does every Phillies fan wish that he could play center field, because the center field position's been a disaster as of late. I don't mean to harp on Brandon Marsh, but it seems that I have become the leader of like the Brandon Marsh is not a major league player brigade, if you will. Johan Rojas, while I think has better defensive upside, right, is not a much better hitter, if a better hitter at all, than Brandon Marsh. The two are pretty equatable when it comes to the offensive productivity. So if Otto Kemp, or really anybody, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Justin Crawford, could play center field, then I think that would be a beautiful thing to see. And I've been saying for a while, and yes, Justin Crawford right now is dealing with a quad injury. He exited the game the other day. He hasn't played since. Expectations are that maybe he plays sometime this week or the back end of this weekend into the early portions of next week. I think I've been saying this since the beginning of the season. You could legitimately, in the old words of my radio career, go back and check the tape. You can pull the tape from March and April and last week and yesterday. I genuinely do not believe that the Phillies starting center fielder in September and in a postseason run is currently on the 26-man roster. And whether that means it's Justin Crawford or they make a trade, I genuinely do not believe that the answer right now is on the 26-man roster. So with that being said, I think if anybody was available to play center field right now, and again, I think Justin Crawford could very realistically be ready, that'll be a move that gets made in time. But right now with the Kemp move, I think he's going to get a little bit of time at third, play a little bit of time in left, pinch hit a little bit, as I said, late in game situations when a lefty comes in to pitch, especially if either Marsh or Kepler are in the lineup. He'll get some pinch hit opportunities. Maybe you'll see him sprinkled in at first. I think Rob Thompson will get creative with Otto Kemp in the next couple of weeks. And I think you should, right? Because there's no reason not to. And if he struggles and when Bryce Harper is ready to come back, you send him back down and let him get some more at-bats in AAA. But I think this is a low-risk, high-reward type of move for the Phillies because the guy's proven he can hit at the AAA level. And it's time to see what he can do at the major league level. Now, the damper on this, the bad news, is that Bryce Harper is heading to the IL. I do want to say this before we get to Bryce Harper. Two of the things with Otto Kemp that stand out to me that the Phillies have not done a very good job at this season so far, sans a couple of guys, Kyle Schwarber specifically. Nick Castellanos has done a better job of it. Alec Boehm's been better as of late. But two things that the Phillies have not done a particularly good job of in recent run, especially, in the 7 losses in the last 8 games, is hit with runners in scoring position and hit with 2 outs. And Otto Kemp has done both of those things really successfully in AAA. He's hitting .358 with runners in scoring position and .357 with 2 outs this year. So, again, I'm not saying this is a cure-all. I'm not saying this is like a turn this recent string of misfortune around. But I do think that this can't hurt. And I think it could help if you put him in in the lineup on a semi-consistent basis to see what he's got against Major League pitching. All right, let's turn our attention to Bryce Harper now, who again is hitting the IL. It is retroactive to yesterday, I believe. It's retroactive to 6/6. It's going to be a 10-day stint on the IL, what they are calling right wrist inflammation. Now, it's the same wrist that he got hit on by Spencer Strider in the series against the Braves. And Bryce Harper, I think Bryce Harper is starting to deal with some mounting stuff. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he was injured prior to the pitch by Spencer Strider, but I think there's a difference between injured and hurt. And I think he's been playing maybe hurt, maybe banged up a little bit. And it's a guy who stands close to the plate. It's a guy who likes to stand on top of the plate, and it's a good hitter. So pitchers are going to throw in on the hands to not let him get his hands extended. He brought that up. Spencer Strider brought it up. I've spoken about it. Many people have said, when you have the whole week of retribution and retaliation type of stuff, Bryce Harper brought it up. He's like, I'm not going to move away from the plate. It's where I stand. Pitchers like to throw me inside, and that's okay. And sometimes you're going to get hit with the pitch. But I do think that maybe he's starting to have a little bit of mounting, like nagging injuries, a little being banged up here and hit around here. And this is the latest in those type of situations where I don't think that wrist ever fully was 100% from when he got hit by the pitch. But it's not like Harper was setting the world on fire in the 4 or 5 games prior to that. He had gone into a little bit of a regression. We talked about Harper in the month of April. It was a pretty rough month of April. And then in May, he was way better, right? In total, he hit .308 in the month of May, where he had a stretch against the Cardinals, the Pirates, I think it was the Rockies, and then the A's, where he was tearing the cover off the ball. He jumped his average at one point from .232 all the way up to .276 in the span of like a week and a half because he was sprinkling in 2 and 3 hit nights on a routine basis. 3 hits against the Guardians, 2 hits against the Cardinals, 3 hits and 2 hits against the Pirates, 2 hits, 3 hits, 2 hits against the Rockies, 2 hits against the A's. My point was he was starting to pick it up and come into form. And then, he had a couple over nights, right? It was 2 for 6 against the A's, but in total, right before the injury, he was 3 for 17. And so when I say not setting the world on fire, quote unquote, it was a dip from the excessive productivity that he had over the course of the month of May. He hit .308 over the month of May. He was excellent in the month of May. But he was 3 for his last 17 prior to the pitch that Strider hit him with. And then when he returned, he was just 1 for 11 and struck out 5 times in the 11 at-bats. And if you remember, he hit a home run in his first at-bat back off of Bowden Francis, who the Phillies crushed. Since that point, he was 0 for 10. You could just tell he wasn't fully right. He was kind of almost reverting back to, and again, small sample size, 10 at-bats, but it felt like he was reverting back a little bit to the April Bryce Harper plate approach that we saw, which was something that we asked to be improved upon, and it significantly was in the month of May. But when I say the April Bryce Harper plate approach, I'm talking about the fact that he's chased a lot of pitches, the fact that he is in the 2nd percentile of whiff rate this year. And that's something that we've talked about plenty. Like Bryce Harper swings and misses through a lot of pitches. And that's a product more, I think, of the fact that he has a violent swing. And when I say violent, I don't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. He just swings hard. He's in the 85th percentile of bat speed. And he swings at a lot of pitches because he's trying to maximize his plate appearance or his at-bat. And I have no issue with that because, again, one of those pieces of like the good overwhelmingly outweighs the bad. But Bryce Harper this year and throughout his career has swung and missed a ton. This year, it's just really been exemplified. And I think it's due in part to, I don't think he's 100% right. And I don't think he was 100% healthy prior to the hit by pitch, and I don't think he's 100% healthy now. And it's why they've put him on the injured list with this right wrist inflammation. I said it in April. I expect Bryce Harper to bounce back. And he did. And the month of May was excellent. As I said, 308. But it wasn't just the 308 in the month of May that was important. I think it was the fact that he was starting to drive the ball a little bit more. His OBP, or excuse me, his slugging in April was 415. His slugging in May was 484, nearly 70 points better. His OPS in April was 791. In May, it was 865. Again, over 70 points better. So it was a much better, more well-rounded, more complete month for Bryce Harper. And that's the kind of player that we expect him to be, right? Where in April, he was running into some hard luck, where his expected numbers, again, talk about the expected numbers, were off the charts. They were way better than expectations. And then in May, he started to meet them a little bit, especially in the middle portions of May, in that stretch that I talked about from Cleveland, basically all the way through Sacramento. He was insanely good. But I do think there is a little bit of mounting injury for him right now. And this seems like it could be a little bit of a reset for him, where take the time. I know you're a gamer. Everybody knows you're a gamer. You want to take the extra base. You want to be Mr. Hustle. And I think it's why people adore you. It's why you are a fan favorite, not just because you're good, but that means something in this city. But I think for Harper specifically right now, getting him off his feet for 10 days or 2 weeks might not be the worst thing, because I think these small kind of nagging injuries are starting to mount a little bit, and this might not be the worst thing. All right, I've rambled for 20 minutes. The Phillies are getting set to take on the Pirates today at 4 o'clock. I think the expectation, I don't know if it's officially been announced, but I believe the expectation is that Otto Kemp is going to play third base today. Okay, it has actually just officially come out. Otto Kemp is going to play third base today. He's going to hit seventh. So here's the lineup. No real surprises outside of, the addition of Kemp in the lineup. Trey Turner's going to lead off and play short. Kyle Schwarber will hit second and DH. Alec Boehm is going to play first and hit third. Nick Castellanos will play right and hit fourth. JT Realmuto will move up to the 5 spot and catch. Edmundo Sosa is going to play second with I assume it's a lefty on the mound today. I have not checked in on who's pitching for the Pirates just yet. But my expectation is that it's probably a lefty. It's Andrew Heaney on the mound, which makes sense as to why that Edmundo Sosa is going to play second. Otto Kemp will make his major league debut and play third. He'll hit seventh. Weston Wilson's going to play left and bat eighth. And then Johan Rojas will get the start in center field and bat ninth. Of course, Ranger Suarez gets the ball for the Phils in game 2 as they look to bounce back after a rough game 1 where they end up losing the game 5-4. Jordan Romano with a blown save or takes the loss, excuse me. And it was their 7th loss in 8 tries. All right, let's get out of here. Enjoy your Saturday. Thanks so much for everybody who was in the chat. I see AC Phyllis, Steve Garrison, Molly and Barkley's Life, K-Red, Elephant in the Room, DM, Jim Burtz, Mark Saber, 1985. I'm just going to continue to scroll. It was a very active chat here. Everybody, if I missed you, I apologize. Thank you for being here. Chris Miller, John Peace, everybody. Thank you so much. Our resident Mets fan, Everyday Mets, hello. Thanks for joining us. At least hit the like button on the way out. VG was in the chat. What's up, VG? David, thank you. Corey, everybody for being here today. I'm actually not funny. You guys are the best. Can't thank you enough for joining us on this emergency podcast. As Otto Kemp will make his major league debut today. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about it on Monday as we get back on regular schedule. 1 o'clock, the PHLY Phillies podcast will go live at Monday on 1 o'clock. We'll talk to Bob Cooney at 1:30. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you at 1 on the PHLY Phillies podcast. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.